What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. Got some information in regards to Extreme Force coming out of Japan. If you guys don't know what Extreme Force is the third booster set of the Vrain's era. So this is going to be released after Circuit Break, and I think that we'll probably see this in the TCG sometime between January and February of 2018. So next year, we're still a ways out, but it is interesting to see some of the new cards, and especially for them to be coming out this early. I think that this is a leak, but I can actually confirm that. Now, one of the cool things is we actually know about the cover card of Extreme Force. Now, we already knew what the card looked like, and actually here is a close-up just to give you guys a better image. We knew what the artwork was, we just didn't really know anything about the card, and it did obviously look like it was a variation of Decode Talker. This is actually Excode Talker. The artwork to me isn't all that appealing. It's kind of like green and fat, and it doesn't look nearly as cool as the original Decode Talker. I know some people are going to be like, Cap G fat shaming confirmed. The irony is, not only do I think that this card doesn't look as good as Decode Talker, it's not as good as Decode Talker. I know I'm going to get some heat because somebody's like, Cap G, give a card a chance. It's OP. Just think about, I'm not seeing it, guys. I've read this card about 3 or 4 times over, and I just don't get how it's supposed to actually be better than the original. It just seems like it's different for the sake of being different. And the card is very similar to Decode Talker. They're both Link 3s. They're both Cybers type. Obviously, they both have Talker in their name. Very similar. But let's go ahead and actually look at Excode Talker and see what he does and how he can actually be used, because I don't think that this card is nearly as good as the original. So again, this is Excode Talker. It is Wind Cybers type. 2300 attack, just like Decode Talker. Link 3. The cursors point up, left, and right. So, you know, you do actually embolden your opponent to potentially use their main monster zones for, you know, summoning extra deck monsters. If you don't play this card correctly, gotta watch out. It requires 2+ Cybers type effect monsters. So you can't just use Cybers normal monsters. Are there any Cybers normal monsters in the game? I'm not even sure, to be honest, but even if there were, you cannot use that. Obviously, it means that you cannot use tokens as well. So you cannot use your one-time passcode, that new card. This says the first effect is the hard once per turn. When this card is link summoned, you can choose a number of unused main monster zones equal to the number of monsters in the extra monster zone. Those main monster zones cannot be used while this card, or excuse me, while this monster remains face up. Second effect, monsters that this card points to gain 500 attack. Also, they cannot be destroyed by card effects. So let's start with the second effect, because I actually think that is much more useful. Empowering monsters on your field is always a good thing. Turning them into, you know, cards that are immune to Regeki and Torrential Tributes and things like Interrupted Slumber, also Dark Hole. Like, that's actually pretty solid. And even if we went towards a meta where people weren't running a bunch of monster removal cards, kind of how it was when Duelist Alliance came out, people took the torrentials and stuff like that out of their deck, that would still be fine because you'd still get the attack value, and that's pretty decent, especially if you can get this guy linked to 3 monsters on the field. That's 1500 more damage basically for free that your opponent is going to have to account for. That's a lot of damage. The second effect with this card is not the problem. It's Excode's first effect, and it's basically a watered down ground collapse. And if you look at the game of Yu-Gi-Oh historically, go all the way back from, you know, GX and DM to today, cards like this and this kind of gimmicky, oh, I'm gonna lock a bunch of your main monster zones out and see how you like that, like it's just never been a competitive strategy. There's been things like Ojama King that's tried to do it, and I believe he takes up like 3 monster zones. There's been ground collapse and other cards. It just doesn't work, especially considering this guy doesn't offer himself any protection. So yeah, they put it in there that, you know, they can't use those zones while he's face up on the field, but how long is it going to stay face up on the field? This card is only 2300 attack. Its attack value never goes up like Decode Talker. It doesn't offer itself any protection like Decode Talker. Decode Talker can protect itself from a Trident or from a Ring of Destruction or an evac device or something like that. This card falls to all of that. So how difficult is it to basically kill a vanilla 2300 monster in Yu-Gi-Oh? Like in 2017, 2018? It's not that hard. We all know that. That's why I don't see this card staying on the field longer than a turn or two. And even if you did lock out a couple of monster zones, your opponent is free to use the other ones. Unless they need to make, like, I don't know, maybe a Link 4 or something like that, and they're very desperate. I just don't really see this being a viable competitive strategy. And honestly, I just don't like the fact that this guy doesn't offer himself any protection. His second effect is cool, but I don't know. I feel like the first effect is just gimmicky, and I feel like it's not nearly the card that Decode Talker is, where Decode Talker can protect not only itself, but it can protect you against like things like Cosmic Cyclone and Twin Twisters. It can protect your back row. Its attack can go through the roof, and it can just be a powerhouse that your opponent just has problems dealing with. This card doesn't do pretty much any of that. It just has this gimmicky ground collapse effect, and I don't know. I honestly wouldn't even run this card, but maybe there'll be some other support card that makes this card better. To me, it just feels like a variation just to be a variation. It feels like how during GX, Jaden would have like all of these trillion freaking fusion E-Heroes monsters, and half of them were kind of useless. This kind of feels in line with that. It's just like a useless monster that is different to be different. But second effect is actually pretty decent. The first effect just completely is, I don't know. I don't think it's honestly that good. But you guys let me know what you think of Excode Talker. Also, do you guys think that it's as good as Decode Talker? Because I think that it is definitely not. Anyways, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already. This video has been brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audible.com/MegaCapitalG. Over 180,000 titles to choose from on your mobile device. I'm listening to the amazing I Can't Make This Up by Kevin Hart. Link in the description.